Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, passengers hospitalized following severe turbulence.
We will need a stretcher, and I know that there is bleeding as well.
A mid-air scare sends 2 to the hospital when a United Express flight from Aspen to Houston gets rocked by turbulence, leaving several passengers injured during one of the busiest travel weekends of the year.
I'm Morgan Norwood here at Newark Airport, one of the busiest hubs in the country. I'll have the latest on that turbulence, plus more on those air traffic control issues that left many flights here grounded, all amid the busy holiday travel stretch.
New details on Tuesday's tragic Catholic school shooting that left 2 children dead, 5 still hospitalized. Police say it was the church's policy of locking the doors before Mass that saved lives. Our Alex Perez is in Minneapolis. Growing turmoil inside the CDC. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy overhauling the nation's vaccine policy, sparking confusion over if and when Americans should get new vaccines. And internal battles at the agency leading to high-level resignations. Dan Jernigan is one of 4 veteran CDC leaders who quit their posts in protest this week, and he joins us tonight to talk about it. Those low-priced goods you buy from sites like Amazon, Etsy, Shein, and Temu could have just gotten a lot more expensive, thanks to new tariffs that went into effect overnight, closing a loophole for millions of international packages. We'll look at what this means for consumers in tonight's By the Numbers. And the Powerball jackpot now at nearly $1 billion. The drawing is this weekend. Do you have your ticket?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Juju Chang in for Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin this Friday night with the chaos on board a regional passenger jet rocked by turbulence. Several people injured, all in the middle of what's expected to be the busiest Labor Day holiday weekend for travel in 15 years. The United Express flight from Aspen to Houston was diverted to Austin after the pilots declared an emergency. Several people needed medical care. Take a look at this video from inside the plane showing oxygen masks dangling from the ceiling. The plane dropping more than 4,000 feet in less than a minute. An aisle here littered with personal items and debris, even a menu somehow stuck to the ceiling. And tonight, the airline says the plane landed safely and everyone is now okay, but it's a difficult start to a travel holiday weekend for those passengers and crew at one of the busiest times of this long weekend. And we have your all-important holiday weekend forecast ahead, but first, here's Morgan Norwood outside Newark International Airport tonight. Hey, Morgan.
Hi, Juju. Just a frightening mid-air scare amid the busy holiday travel season. That plane, that regional jet, dropping about 4,000 feet in just seconds. Passengers grateful they had on their seatbelts.
Tonight, a mid-air scare aboard a regional jet at the height of the Labor Day weekend travel rush.
We will need a stretcher, and I know that there is bleeding as well.
A United Express flight rocked by turbulence on Thursday as it traveled from Aspen, Colorado to Houston, Texas. Flight Radar 24 data showing the turbulence that caused the aircraft to drop more than 4,000 feet in less than a minute. Passenger Gretchen Gilliam says the turbulence came out of nowhere.
The man in front of me flew up and hit the ceiling.
Multiple people injured.
There was people saying prayers very loudly. There was some people hollering out what's wrong, what is going on.
Images from inside the cabin showing oxygen masks deployed. A menu stuck to the ceiling. The floor littered with passengers' belongings. The aircraft, with 43 passengers and crew on board, forced to divert, making an emergency landing in Austin, Texas. 2 adult passengers later transported to the hospital, all injuries said to be non-life-threatening. It comes a day after air traffic control issues halted many incoming flights at Newark Liberty International Airport for nearly 2 hours. The FAA reducing arriving flights by nearly 20%. But tonight, operations returning to normal.
And Morgan Norwood joins us now from Newark International Airport. And Morgan, what is SkyWest saying about this incident?
Well, Juju, SkyWest, which operates that plane, or that flight rather, says that plane landed safely. Medical crews immediately rushing in on the ground there. They also say that they're working with their partner United to help those customers. Of course, this comes during the busy holiday travel stretch. Juju?
Morgan Norwood, thank you. And now to that all-important forecast this final summer holiday weekend. Pockets of heavy rain are set to cause some travel trouble. Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg of our New York station WABC is here. And Lee, who needs to be worried about rain?
You know, there's a couple of trouble spots to start the weekend, and one of them comes out in the southwest, where you're talking about Colorado into Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle in New Mexico. We've had some pretty strong thunderstorms, part of the monsoon flow. These downpours and thunderstorms can cause wind gusts of 60 miles an hour, even some large hail. You know, we had some gusty thunderstorms this afternoon in eastern New England. They continue into the early evening. That'll subside. That's where the cold front bringing in a fall feel for the upcoming weekend. Starts out pretty chilly in the northeast, even some showers out of Adirondacks and northern New England on Saturday. Then a modest warm-up throughout the weekend. Now, it's kind of rinse and repeat over the weekend because we have a stalled front over the Gulf Coast. It's a rainy weekend in Florida, on the Gulf Coast, and then into the plains, all the way up to the Dakotas. The west, it starts warm and dry and building heat. Unfortunately, extreme heat and fire danger into next week. Juju?
Thanks for looking at the crystal ball. Lee Goldberg, thank you as always. There's growing confusion over the COVID vaccine tonight, with CVS, the nation's largest pharmacy chain, now limiting access to the vaccine in some states, even as COVID cases rise. This comes amid the turmoil at the CDC, with millions looking for guidance from the nation's top health officials. Here's Selena Wang.
Tonight, with changes to vaccine policy fueling the turmoil at the CDC, confusion over how and where Americans will get the new COVID vaccine. Today, just as the new vaccines are rolling out to pharmacies across the country, CVS announcing it will limit access to the shot in 16 states, requiring prescriptions in 13 states, including New York, Florida, and Colorado, and simply not offering it in 3 others. It comes just days after the FDA approved the COVID vaccine for this fall, only for Americans over 65 and adults and children at high risk. But a critical CDC panel is not expected to give their recommendation for several more weeks.
Because of that uncertainty, it is putting a lot of hesitancy among pharmacists and patients around what that coverage may actually look like at the end of the day.
The White House insists the vaccine will still be available for all Americans who want it, but pressed on whether insurance will continue to cover it, the White House sidestepping.
The FDA's decision does not affect the availability of COVID vaccines for Americans who want them. We believe in individual choice.
The White House also quick to note less than 25% of Americans get the booster each year. It comes as HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, has been overhauling the nation's vaccine policy, this week ousting the head of the CDC, Susan Monarez, when she refused to get on board with his changes. Her lawyer saying she refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. Kennedy charging ahead, naming his deputy Jim O'Neill as the interim director of the CDC, who has said he supports vaccines but not vaccine mandates.
And Selena joins us now. When is that CDC panel expected to meet, Selena, and how soon could we get final clarity on who will be recommended for the vaccine?
Well, Juju, that panel is expected to meet in 3 weeks, but with COVID cases already ticking up, some medical groups are warning against putting limits on who can get the shot. And tonight, Walgreens is telling us that they'll continue to give vaccines in states where they're able to. Juju?
And Selena, there's another consequential headline tonight about the president's tariffs.
Yeah, there is. So a federal appeals court tonight ruled that most of the president's sweeping global tariffs are illegal, but those tariffs do remain in place for now. The court is giving the Trump administration time to appeal that decision. So this case is likely headed for the Supreme Court. And President Trump himself, he is weighing in tonight on this on social media, slamming the decision and also saying that, quote, all tariffs are still in effect and calling on the Supreme Court to rule in his favor. Juju?
Setting up a showdown to the Supreme Court. Selena Wang, thanks for all of that. And we'll have much more on the new tariffs and that went into effect overnight and how it might impact consumers coming up a little later in the show. But let's take a minute to turn back to the news out of the CDC amid turmoil at the agency this week. In response to the firing of Director Susan Monarez, 4 veteran CDC leaders quit their posts in protest. Dr. Dan Jernigan was one of those people who left. He was director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases and was one of the CDC's top flu experts as well. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us. And we know that you have been talking with your colleagues, that HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy has named his deputy, Jim O'Neill, as acting director of the CDC. What do you make of that decision?
Well, I think if I was in his position, I would want to have somebody that had a lot of scientific expertise, that had been working in government for a long time and understands public health. And so I can't speak to the track record for him, but I do know that there are individuals that really should be in these kinds of positions, dealing with science, dealing with good policies.
Are you suggesting that he's not?
I would say that he is probably an acting person. What I'm hoping is that whoever the secretary chooses as a permanent director does have that criteria. My concern, of course, over the last week was that a person who was a scientist, who understood working in public health, was fired and was not able to do that evidence-based approach to making policies and decisions at the CDC. And if that's the case for Susan Monarez, I'm not sure exactly what the incoming director is going to be able to do.
Now, there's been a lot of focus on the upcoming Vaccine Advisory Committee meeting in September. Senator Bill Cassidy has even asked for that meeting to be delayed. What are your concerns about that meeting, and do you think it should go forward?
We know that vaccines save lives. They improve the lives of Americans. They prevent death. They are incredible preventive tools. The ACIP, that advisory committee, is the way that we have an objective way of making decisions about vaccines. The last advisory committee meeting was a complete lack of following the usual procedures for evidence-based decision making. If what we saw last a few weeks ago, is what's going to happen in just a few weeks here, I'm concerned that the outcome from that meeting will be recommendations that we may not be able to trust.
And in your resignation letter, you wrote, "I believe strongly in the mission of public health and the leadership that CDC has given for almost 80 years. However, given the current context in the department, I feel it is best for me to offer my resignation." You had spent more than 30 years at the CDC, and some may wonder why you chose not to stay and fight this battle from the inside. It was no doubt an important and painful decision for you. What made you ultimately decide to leave?
So I have been there for 30 years, and there are incredible scientists, very driven people that have been working for a very long time to make sure that the public is protected. My decision, along with two others, Deb Howery, who is the chief medical officer, and Dr. Daskalakis, who is in the immunization group at CDC, we made that decision together, and we did that because of what we saw happening to Dr. Monarez, where she was not able to do a evidence-based approach to things. So I had to make that decision. I think part of her firing was, in fact, that she was willing to stand up for us and not fire us. And so with her gone, I think our decisions were made for us, that a resignation made the best sense. But we are trying to do all that we can now that we're not there still to try and protect to protect Americans and make sure that public health moves forward.
And her lawyers say that she was fired because she refused to, quote, rubber stamp unscientific and reckless directives. In your role at the CDC, did you directly experience instances where politics, in your view, interfered with science?
The bottom line is that we need to get politics out of public health. What I experienced was requests for data, for vaccine safety data. Those vaccine data files and all of that information were provided to others at the department to evaluate and make decisions that I believe will be coming out next week. That process is one that we don't know what the scientific practices they were using. We're not sure if they were adhering to the ethical responsibility for patient identification and privacy. So all of those things together make us need to rethink our engagement and make sure that we can do everything we can to protect public health, even though we're no longer at CDC.
Dan Jernigan, thank you so much for talking with us tonight.
Thanks a lot.
In other news, Chicago is bracing for an immigration crackdown tonight as the Trump administration signals its campaign of mass deportations is heading to the Windy City as soon as next week. Our Jay O'Brien has more.
Tonight, President Trump ramping up his immigration crackdown targeting Chicago. Law enforcement officials telling ABC News the administration plans to surge immigration enforcement operations in the city as early as next week. Adding DHS has asked about using a nearby naval station as a base of operations. It comes as the president looks to expand what he calls a nationwide crime crackdown. After taking over law enforcement in Washington, D.C., Trump has repeatedly said his focus could soon turn to Chicago, telling me,
Chicago, everybody knows how bad it is. They should be saying, please come in.
But local officials today condemning any influx of federal agents.
These raids are not law enforcement, but instead they are fear enforcements.
Mass deportations, a key campaign promise of the president, who has flooded federal law enforcement supported by the National Guard to largely Democratic-run states and cities, some led by Trump's political rivals. Earlier this month, Homeland Security conducting what it called a routine operation outside a Los Angeles event for California Governor Gavin Newsom, making one arrest. Newsom calling it an act of intimidation.
And Jay O'Brien joins us now. Jay, are there any signs that this kind of crackdown could go beyond just Chicago?
Yeah, Juju. I mean, mass deportations, a main campaign promise of the president. We've already seen these operations in major cities like Los Angeles and small communities, too. The administration has put pressure on ICE to ramp up its immigration enforcement operations to increase its number of deportations. And now, after the passage of that signature piece of legislation of the president's, what he labeled that quote-unquote big, beautiful bill, ICE now has the largest funding of any federal law enforcement agency in the country, Juju.
And in terms of the crackdown, Jay, we're learning about 2 firefighters arrested by Border Patrol agents while they helped battle the Bear Gulch fire in Washington state on Wednesday. What do we know about that?
These were 2 firefighters that were part of private contractors who were helping fight that fire, and federal officials say there was an investigation into the personnel of those private firefighting companies, that these 2 individuals were arrested after they screened the identities of multiple of those firefighters. And now Customs and Border Protection says that they did not impede the firefighting operations in the midst of conducting this investigation, but already we're hearing from state officials, including the Democratic governor of that state, who says that this is, quote, deeply concerning. Juju.
Jay O'Brien from D.C., thank you. There are chilling new details tonight about the deadly shooting in Minneapolis, and police are now in contact with the suspect's parents. And as the community mourns the loss of 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and 10-year-old Harper Moisky, the police chief says the church's security procedures during Mass likely saved lives. Our Alex Perez reports from Minneapolis. Alex?
Hey, Juju, newly released search warrants are revealing details about the shooter, and we're now learning more about the 2 young children killed in this horrific attack.
Tonight, a community trying to heal from overwhelming heartache after Wednesday's heartless attack that killed 10-year-old Harper Moisky and 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and injured more than a dozen other children. At the hospital, officials say 5 pediatric patients remain hospitalized, 4 listed in satisfactory condition, 1 still in critical. One bright spot today, another patient was released. 13-year-old Andre Gunter still in the hospital. He was shot in the stomach. His aunt writing he has showed strength and faith beyond his years, and that before he was rushed into surgery, Andre looked at the surgeon and asked one simple, powerful request. Can you say a prayer with me? Outside the hospital overnight, supporters turning out, lighting candles. At one point, looking to the hospital's windows and offering a comforting wave to patients inside. And tonight, new details on how the chaos unfolded inside Annunciation Catholic School Church Wednesday. The first 911 call coming in at 8:27 a.m. Officers on scene by 8:31, just 4 minutes later. Police Chief Brian O'Hara telling me the church's policy of locking the doors before Mass saved lives.
Thankfully, to the processes that the church had in place, all of the things that those kids, that the school staff did, clearly this could have been so much worse.
A search warrant obtained by ABC News reveals the killer's father told police his child recently broke up with their significant other and was living with a friend at the time of the attack. And today, police confirmed they have been in contact with the killer's mother, but it's not clear if she's cooperating.
There has been conversation, and I am not at liberty to go any further than that.
And Alex Perez joins us now from Minneapolis. Alex, will there be any increase in law enforcement in response to the tragedy?
Well, Juju, there will be. The governor here says he intends to deploy law enforcement to schools and places of worship to support public safety. Juju?
So many of those students were traumatized. Is there any word on when the school will be back in session at Annunciation?
Well, Juju, public schools begin next week, but officials here at Annunciation say they will be meeting over the weekend to determine when classes will resume for students here. Juju?
Alex Perez, thank you. Now to President Trump revoking Secret Service protection for former Vice President Kamala Harris, just as she's a few weeks away from beginning a nationwide book tour. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins us now. And Pierre, what are we learning about this sudden move?
Well, Harris has 3 days to come up with a new security plan after President Trump revoked her Secret Service detail effective on Monday. In doing so, the president strips away an extension from former President Biden that would have given Harris a full additional year of Secret Service protection on top of the 6 months offered under federal law. Tonight, it's unclear what prompted the abrupt change, but Juju, it's no secret there are not a lot of warm feelings involving the parties here.
And not getting any warmer. Pierre, thank you. Israel is ramping up its military takeover of Gaza City, declaring it a dangerous combat zone. The city, home to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. What will happen to them now? Here is Chief International Correspondent James Longman.
Israeli forces tonight launching their long-feared occupation of Gaza City, once a place of refuge for hundreds of thousands displaced by war. Now the IDF calls it a dangerous combat zone. Aerial bombardments have ramped up and Israeli troops are already demolishing homes on the city outskirts. Children and families forced to move again. Raeda Auda, already displaced twice, fighting back tears, saying her feelings are indescribable because of the sadness and pain she feels. Israel says the siege is necessary to root out Hamas and find the remaining hostages. But humanitarian groups and some European allies fear it's a plan to push Palestinians out for good. It comes as Israel says it's recovered the bodies of 2 hostages in Gaza, taken on October 7th. One of them, Ilan Weiss, was killed defending his kibbutz. Today, his wife and daughter, who were also taken captive but later released, can finally mourn his loss. Juju, there are still nearly 50 hostages in Gaza. Some 20 of them are believed to be still alive. And tonight, their families are calling on the Netanyahu government to get back around the negotiating table and make sure every one of them can come home. Juju?
James Longman, thank you. The United States has agreed to sell Ukraine $825 million in weapons as peace talks between the U.S., the Kremlin, and Ukraine are still stalled. The sale includes more than 3,500 long-range missiles, GPS units, and other defense equipment meant to aid Ukraine's military training and technical efforts. The U.S. announced the deal as Russia continues its assault on Ukraine, even after President Trump met with President Vladimir Putin to discuss peace earlier this month. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe is calling for a special legislative session to redraw the state's 8 congressional districts. At President Trump's urging, Missouri's legislature will return to attempt to pass a map that removes a Democratic-leaning district in Kansas City. The decision follows Texas's actions to redraw districts in response to the president's request to add Republican congressional districts before the 2026 midterm elections. Missouri lawmakers soundly rejected a similar effort back in 2022. Spirit Airlines has filed for bankruptcy for the second time in a year after it failed to restore its financial standing. The budget airline, which exited Chapter 11 protection in March, says the decision will not affect its flights for the upcoming Labor Day weekend. Customers can use their tickets, credits, and loyalty points as the company restructures. Spirit says it will use the process to redesign its network, optimize its fleet, and find ways to meet its customers' preferences. Well, tonight we mark 20 years since Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Louisiana, flooding the city of New Orleans and upending the lives of millions. The New Orleans community came together to remember the nearly 2,000 lives lost during the storm. There was a reading of victims' names and a wreath-laying ceremony to honor the unnamed and unclaimed victims at the New Orleans Katrina Memorial. Thousands later marched in a plea for community improvements, advocating for August 29th to be marked a state and local holiday. And of course, you can watch Hurricane Katrina 20 years after the storm with Robin Roberts when it premieres tonight at 8 p.m. on ABC, produced by Robin's production company, Rock and Robin Productions, and ABC News Studios. You can also stream it next day on Hulu and Disney+. Well, coming up, starting today, shipments on some of your favorite items will no longer be exempt from tariffs. Find out how this news could affect your packages. And big money is up for grabs. The Powerball jackpot is the biggest yet this year. Will you be this weekend's grand prize winner? And Sabrina Carpenter just dropped her new album and music video. Find out which Oscar-nominated star is featured in drag. Buckle up, because beginning today, low-priced packages that once entered the U.S. duty-free will now be facing new fees, taxed, and tariffs set by the Trump administration. Most analysts believe that you, the consumer, will eventually end up paying these extra costs, which are tonight's By the Numbers. It was called the de minimis loophole, which saved Americans billions of dollars each year. But starting today, all commercial shipments entering the U.S. worth $800 and less will now be subject to full U.S. duties. The duties or tariffs will range from 10 to 50% of an item's declared value, depending on the tariff rate on a package's country of origin. And that means the stuff you buy online from big e-commerce companies like Shein and Temu that sell goods through online vendors like Amazon, Etsy, and eBay is likely to become more expensive, especially if companies decide to pass those costs on to you. To ensure a smooth transition for the next 6 months, instead of a tariff, commercial carriers and the U.S. Postal Service can instead charge a flat fee from $80 to $200, depending on the country of origin's tariff rate. According to Customs and Border Protection, 70% of the billion-plus packages coming into the U.S. last year originated from China. The Trump administration is banking the new taxes will especially punish China, forcing Americans to consider buying more goods, either made in the U.S. or at least shipped from the U.S. Chinese exports of lower-value packages soared from about $5 billion in 2018 to $66 billion in 2023. And joining us now to discuss further how all this could end up costing you more is Madison Mills. She's the senior market reporter for Axios. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Madison.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So let me ask you first about the breaking news tonight. A federal appeals court just ruled that President Trump's global tariffs are unlawful. But that won't overturn them just yet, as you know. It could take months to sort through the Supreme Court. Does this also mean the tariffs on goods valued under $800 are unlawful?
Well, as you so smartly just pointed out, a lot of the tariff rates on these items that are going to be impacted by the turning over of the de minimis exemption, they're tied to the tariff rate of that country. So that's what's going to be really important to figure out. As of this evening, we know that a lower court has ruled that those country-specific tariffs put on by the Trump administration were put in place illegally. So what that tariff rate ends up being long-term will therefore impact these items that are impacted by the turning over of the de minimis exemption. And that's what could really impact, of course, consumers, what that tariff rate number actually looks like, and therefore what fee consumers might end up paying on these items.
And President Trump has signaled that he's going to fight this decision to a higher court. But meanwhile, most consumers don't normally check to see where their package is being shipped from, I would imagine, as to not anger customers. Do you think companies will tell you at checkout if they're passing on a tariff or a fee to you?
Well, it's really interesting. We got a preview of this several months ago when Amazon, it was reported, the company later denied this, but it was reported that Amazon was going to put details about where items were coming from on their website so that consumers could be aware of what items could get more expensive. This came up in a White House press briefing, and then Amazon very quickly came out and said they were not going to do that. And this is part of something that myself and my colleagues have reported on a lot at Axios, which is the Trump administration's form of pay me capitalism, this idea that companies have to make sure that they remain in favor with the administration, especially as tariff policy is continuing to be ironed out, because the risks are very high for them in terms of their finances if the administration is not happy with things that they do. And slapping a sticker on an item that says it's going to be more expensive because of tariffs is certainly something the administration would not favor going forward.
And even if Amazon doesn't make it explicit, I would imagine that some eagle-eyed shoppers might be able to find it in the fine print and check where packages are coming from. Is there any way to filter searches for products that ship from the U.S.?
Well, one thing we do know is that consumers are getting a little bit more specific with where they're shopping. We're seeing sales from companies like Shein and Temu and even Alibaba really dropping since the month of April because consumers know kind of more off the top of their heads that those are some of the retailers that are going to be most adversely impacted by this reversal of the de minimis exemption. And consumers are right to feel that way because we've already seen products from those companies soaring in price, some items going up as much as 80% on Shein and Temu. And in response, we've seen consumer shopping at those companies going down. I have a feeling based on my TikTok algorithms, though, that consumers are going to be very smart about figuring out where they can shop and try to avoid these fees going forward.
So much to look into. Madison Mills, thanks so much from Axios for your perspective. And coming up, J.Crew has customers speculating about its use of AI-generated images. We'll tell you what J.Crew is saying in response. And the next Powerball jackpot will top $1 billion for just the 6th time in history. Find out by when you'll need to pick your numbers. The Powerball jackpot keeps going up and up. How high will it go? The special guest with a fashion twist, starring in Sabrina Carpenter's latest music video, and hundreds of dolphins put on a spectacle. A look at what's trending in tonight's rundown. The dream of becoming America's next billionaire is up for grabs this Saturday night. The Powerball jackpot has climbed to $1 billion and ticket sales soaring across the nation. The game hasn't seen a jackpot winner since May 31st, when a California player won more than $200 million. The current jackpot is the 6th largest in Powerball history. A stampede of more than 100 dolphins was spotted racing alongside a whale-watching boat just off the coast of California. Passengers marveled at the energetic display as the dolphins repeatedly leaped into the air from the water. Some of the dolphins launched themselves more than 10 feet into the air, leaving watchers speechless. The passengers were thrilled to bear witness to such a rare phenomenon. Philadelphia slugger Kyle Schwarber hit 4 home runs Thursday night against Atlanta to become the 21st major leaguer ever to accomplish the feat. Schwarber was 4 for 6 with the Phillies' record 9 RBIs in the 19-4 victory. Amazingly, Schwarber went into the game hitless in his last 20 at-bats. The 32-year-old outfielder has 333 homers in 11 seasons in the majors. Sabrina Carpenter is back with new music and a new music video featuring a special guest star. The 2-time Grammy winner has released her 7th studio album, Man's Best Friend. The pop singer stars in the music video alongside 2-time Oscar nominee Coleman Domingo. Fans of Carpenter have more music from the singer to look forward to. Fellow music superstar Taylor Swift announced earlier this month that she collaborated with Carpenter on her own upcoming album, The Life of a Showgirl, out October 3rd. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is expanding its warning about radioactive shrimp, recalling more brands due to possible contamination. The FDA says shrimp may have been prepared, packed, or held in unsanitary conditions and could possibly be contaminated. The latest recall includes shrimp sold at Kroger grocery stores in 17 states between July 24th and August 11th. The classic 1939 movie The Wizard of Oz is getting a modern makeover at the Las Vegas Sphere. The show debuted last night and includes AI enhancements to extend the field of vision beyond the original scenes and adds immersive experiences from wind and smoke machines during the tornado scenes. Be careful, you don't get swept away. Tonight, J.Crew is under fire, and it's not necessarily because of their fashion. Trevor Alt is with us and has more. Trevor?
Hey, Juju. So this week, J.Crew published an Instagram post featuring a number of photos that had the old school style you would see in vintage J.Crew ads. But then people started to notice that just some small things in these pictures looked a little bit off. And now the comments on that post are filled with people calling it all AI slop.
J.Crew is under fire. The popular and storied retailer facing criticism for what some are speculating are AI-generated images promoting their brand. These are the photos. They look just like J. Crew ads of the past, but these pictures may not be real. You'd have to look very closely to make out the glitches on the clothing and photos' distortions, first pointed out by Blackbird Spy Plane. The caption now credits a digital artist, and the comments are full of complaints.
I just think the whole thing is a massive slap in the face.
Not only are we not using the creative resources that we have, we are recycling old creative from people.
In a statement, J. Crew told The Cut, "We're always exploring new forms of creative expression, and we engage artists of all genres to interpret our brand and experiment with different art mediums." And there are still major questions about the ethics of AI and intellectual property, but the technology is only growing more prevalent and harder to differentiate from reality.
We have to decide where are we okay with using it and where are we not okay with using it, and where do we draw those lines.
And a big area of debate in this post and in the AI space is that it's possible that these photos were created by telling the AI to reference or even copy paid work that was done by real people years ago who are not being paid now. Now, that is the ethical question. If the AI is training off of your work for free, is that theft? Well, that depends on who you ask. Juju?
So many thorny questions. Trevor Alt, thank you. And coming up, Deborah Roberts sits down with Oscar-winning actress Regina King from the new thriller film Caught Stealing. They're discussing her favorite acting roles and what it's like to work with Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, and Bad Bunny. Plus, Jamaican singer and two-time Reggae Artist of the Year Lila Iké is stopping by, previewing her first full-length album, Treasure Self-Love, and she's amazing. Stay with us. And now to our segment, Prime Playlist Shuffle, where we sit down with the artists who are transforming the music industry. And from her Caribbean roots to the global stage, Lila Iké has carved out her place as one of Jamaica's most compelling voices in music. Bringing a genre-bending blend of reggae, soulful R&B, dancehall, and hip-hop, Lila has been recognized as the Female Reggae Artist of the Year 3 times, including just last night at the Caribbean Music Awards, and has been nominated twice as Best Reggae Act at the Music of Black Origin Awards as well. And with the release of this amazing first full-length studio album, Treasure Self-Love, she's finding a raw honesty in her soulful roots. Let's take a listen.
Sunday morning, I plate of fried plantain. That's what we start with. Deep on the side, we sip that real slow. Mint leaves smell nice. We pick what we grow. Yeah, mountain sides, birds fly by.
That was Fried Plantain. And we are all bopping now in the studio. And Lila Iké joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Congratulations on your award.
I appreciate that.
And this album is also a very big deal. Treasure Self-Love. Is this really about self-love and self-discovery?
It really is. I feel like I made this album while I was on that journey. And, you know, it's a lifelong journey. You're continuing to learn self, to love self. But I feel like I delved deeper within the past 4 years of working on this project. And, yeah, the music on this album, I went really deep and vulnerable. I spoke about some stuff that my friends probably didn't even know I was going through.
Like what?
You know, I got diagnosed 3 or 4 years ago with bipolar disorder, and it was a lot to deal with, and so I opened up about that. And, you know, the main point is to just let other people who might be going through whatever mental issues just know that I see you, I hear you, I understand it.
Well, as an artist, you're a songwriter, but you also have an incredibly sultry voice as a singer.
Thank you.
And your music has such an interesting blend of really R&B, but really reggae with the plantains and all of it.
Yeah.
How do you blend all of these genres? Are you conscious of it? And,
I feel like I don't think I'm conscious of it. I feel like I grew up in a household where my mom, she's like a music fanatic. So I grew up listening to souls, reggae, dancehall. So it's like just a blend and a pepper pot brew of just all of these sounds. And yeah, it all comes out when it does.
In some ways, this album is a love letter to Jamaica, as is all of your art. Why is representation so important for you?
I feel like that's me, you know, Jamaica is me. I am a Jamaican girl I'm probably one of the most Jamaican women you're ever going to meet. I love my country. I love representing reggae music. I feel like it's a very important genre from then till now. Just the messages that it has brought, you know, and the creation of the music and the story behind all of it.
And yet you've also done some high-profile collabs in this with her and Massacre.
Yeah.
And tell me about, you know, what it's like to share the creative energy with these stars of the music industry.
It's amazing. I feel like, for me, making music with a communal energy definitely feels special because I do what I do every day. But being in the room with somebody that is from a completely different background, it just brings so much more creativity on the table.
And you said that, you know, this is the first time you attended in person the Reggae Awards because you have a foundation that does back to school stuff.
I do. I have an event in my community annually. Just before the kids go to school, we get them like bags, books, pencils, whatever you can think about that they'll need for school. We take care of that, and we have like chefs come in and prepare food for them. They have bouncer bounce, all sorts of rides. And then I come from a community that is big on sound system culture. So I get one of the biggest sound systems, high tension, set up in like the heart of the community. And it's just music all day. And also myself and my peers, we go and we put on a concert at the end of the night.
Lila, what a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. This was an amazing talk. Thank you.
Well, good luck to you and this album as well. And you know what? You can listen to Lila's first full-length studio album, Treasure Self-Love, and her complete musical discography anywhere you stream music.
Anywhere at all. Thank you.
Thank you. And continuing in the world of art, she's a director, producer, and actress of the highest caliber. It's impossible to overstate the talents of Regina King. She's won an Oscar, 4 Emmys, and dozens of other awards, and she sat down with our own Deborah Roberts to unpack her latest role in Caught Stealing.
Regina King, welcome to Nightline.
Nice to see you
It's
again.
good to see you. You're always such a glow every time I see you.
Thank you.
And I have to say, before we get to the film, we have all just sort of admired your career over the years. I mean, from 227 to Boys in the Hood, when I really noticed you as a grown-up actress, to The Watchmen.
I got a nose for white supremacy, and he smells like bleach.
And now this film, and a director.
Yeah.
Did you envision that you would have this kind of multifaceted career?
You know, I would say that I didn't envision it, but I've never felt like I was thinking like anything could be a possibility. I think I've been blessed to have a mom that kind of created that foundation for my sister and I to always dream without limits.
When you look back, any character that you really cherish? Because you've played so many different roles.
Oh, wow. I've always said my favorite role is the one I'm currently playing or the one I'm currently promoting. So it's really hard to narrow it down to a favorite. I feel maybe Shirley Chisholm.
There's only one thing you've got going. Your one vote.
I feel like roles choose people. So somewhere in the, you know, where all the gods sit, you know, Shirley was like, you.
The universe wanted you to do that. The newest film, Caught Stealing, it is heart-stopping. You're starring alongside Austin Butler. You play a tough detective, Roman. Let's take a look.
These guys right here, they're scary monsters. Whatever you're doing with them, you should tell me about it before they decide you look better with your eyes cut out.
I'm not doing anything with them. Okay? Are you messing with me?
Kind of. Never know what'll pop loose.
Never know what'll pop loose.
Never know.
What captured you about the script? This particular film, the cast is just stacked. I mean, Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, Bad Bunny.
You know, Liev Schreiber, Vincent D'Onofrio. It was just,
What was it like working alongside all of these unusual actors?
It was pretty awesome. And you just hope that when you meet someone that fan thing doesn't get spoiled because they're not good people. They are all amazing people.
What you hoped they would be.
Yeah, and sensitive people, just in okay with letting their emotions live
in real life.
Yeah, well, when you think about your accolades, Emmy Awards and Oscar, in 2019, one of Time Magazine's most influential people, when you look back, what are you most proud of that you've been able to accomplish?
Gosh, that's tough. I mean, the thing that always comes to my mind is I'm most proud to be Ian's mother. You know what I mean?
Your biggest role in life.
My biggest role in life. And so I guess that's where that will probably always be the answer.
Yeah,
you know?
I can understand that because I would feel that way. And you lost your son 3 years ago, but you still talk about him in the present. You talk about Ian as, I mean, he's with you.
Yeah, he's with me. He's with me all the time. You know, sometimes when I go into different spaces where, you know, I'm really feeling that hole, you know, of his absence in the physical sense, I can close my eyes and really, I guess, a meditative state, and I can feel the spirit. His spirit's always with me.
And you share this too. You've shared your grief. You've shared your celebration of his life. Has that been important for you to eventually put that out into the world?
Absolutely. You know, just recently, you know, I launched a wine called Me and You.
And what does it say?
The phrase Me and You came from the man in my life when I was speaking and having an emotional moment, and he was reminding me that Ian was always with me. And he said, every time you say me and you, no matter who you're talking to, you're always saying Ian's name, and that means that he's with you. Me and you.
You are a director, as I said earlier, and you've taken on so many different projects. Is that where you see your career going, or do you want to continue to dip into all of these different ponds of life?
I think I want to continue to dip into all of these different ponds of life, because to be quite honest, Deborah, I'm really in the space of really appreciating the present. I feel the more I do that, the more I am aware and paying attention to all the little beautiful things that are happening around.
Well, hopefully you'll come by here and talk to us about it.
Absolutely.
Whatever you choose to do. It's always such a pleasure.
Ditto.
What a beautiful spirit. Regina's new movie, Caught Stealing, is in theaters today. And that's our show for this hour. I'm Juju Chang. Please stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us. Happy Labor Day.